I learned something on my first day as a park ranger that no training manual ever mentioned. Never trust the map after sunset. I ignored that warning exactly once. By sunrise, an entire hiking trail had disappeared. A family of 4 had vanished without leaving a single footprint, and a map in my hands showed a place that had never existed before. If I'd followed it for another 5 minutes, I don't think I'd be here telling you this. My name is Caleb Mercer, and for almost 7 years I worked as a backcountry ranger in Black Alder National Forest, a remote stretch of wilderness tucked into the mountains of western Montana. Officially, my job was simple: patrol the trails, help lost hikers, check campsites, close dangerous areas after storms. Unofficially, my job started every evening at sunset, because that's when the park stopped being the park. I transferred to Black Alder after spending 3 years in Yellowstone. I wanted quieter work, fewer tourists, more time alone in the forest. Black Alder seemed perfect. It was huge, beautiful, and strangely forgotten. Even during peak season, most visitors stayed near the southern lakes and never ventured into the northern backcountry. The locals had a saying: "The mountain doesn't keep everyone." I assumed they meant bears or cliffs. I was wrong. The first person I met was Chief Ranger Helen Brooks. She was in her late 50s, calm, practical, and carried herself like someone who'd seen enough strange things that almost nothing surprised her anymore. She handed me my radio, my keys, and a folded park map. Then she looked me directly in the eyes. "Every evening at sunset, compare your map with the one hanging in the ranger station." I waited for the rest of the explanation. It never came. Why? "Because yours won't match." I laughed. She didn't. That should have been my first warning. The first week felt completely normal. I checked campsites, repaired trail markers, helped 2 hikers with twisted ankles, recovered a stolen cooler from a curious black bear. Nothing unusual. The only strange thing was what happened every evening. About 20 minutes before sunset, every ranger returned to the station. No exceptions. Vehicles were parked, trails were cleared, visitors were escorted out. By the time the sun touched the mountains, every ranger was indoors. Nobody explained why. On my 8th day, curiosity finally got the better of me. Instead of heading back immediately, I stayed on Ridge Loop Trail, finishing a routine inspection. The sky turned orange. Bird song slowly faded. Everything became incredibly quiet. Then my radio crackled. "Mercer." It was Helen. "Report. Still on Ridge Loop." A pause. "You have exactly 3 minutes." "I'll be there." "No." Her voice sharpened. "You won't." The transmission ended. I frowned and checked my watch. Sunset in 2 minutes. The station was less than a mile away. Plenty of time. I started walking. After about 5 minutes, I reached the exact same wooden bridge I'd crossed 10 minutes earlier. I stopped. That wasn't possible. There was only one bridge on Ridge Loop. I checked behind me. The trail stretched normally through the trees. Ahead, the same bridge waited. I crossed it again. 5 minutes later, there it was. Again, same cracked railing, same faded warning sign, same fallen pine leaning across the creek. My stomach tightened. I unfolded my map. According to it, I should have been approaching the parking area. Instead, the bridge wasn't even marked. The trail on the paper had changed. Where Ridge Loop should have curved south, a completely different trail now branched north. It was labeled Hollow Man Pass. I never heard of it. I checked the legend. No recent updates. No temporary routes. Nothing. It looked as though Hollow Man Pass had always been there. Except I'd studied this map every day for a week. It hadn't. My radio came alive again. This time, it wasn't Helen. A man's voice whispered, "Don't use the new trails." Static swallowed the rest. "Who's this?" No answer. Only the sound of wind. Then, footsteps. Not on the radio. Behind me. I spun around. The trail was empty. The footsteps stopped. I waited. Nothing. When I turned back, someone stood on the bridge. He wore an old National Park Service uniform. Brown shirt, green trousers, wide-brim ranger hat. Everything looked decades out of date. He stood perfectly still, too far away to make out his face. I raised one hand. "Sir." He didn't move. I took a cautious step toward him. The radio exploded with static. Helen's voice cut through it. Mercer, do not approach him. I froze. Listen carefully. Open your map. My hand shook as I unfolded it. What do you see? Hollow Man Pass. Her breathing became audible. Good. Now tear that page out. What? Now? I hesitated. The old ranger lifted one arm, not waving, pointing toward the new trail on my map. Mercer, Helen shouted. Tear it out before he starts walking. I ripped the map straight down the fold. The page containing Hollow Man Pass fluttered into the wind. The moment it left my hands, the old ranger vanished. Not gradually, not by walking away. He simply wasn't there anymore. The forest seemed to breathe again. Birds started singing. The evening breeze returned. Even the colors of the sky looked normal. My radio crackled one last time. Good. Now, tell me, Helen asked quietly, how many sunsets did you see? I frowned. What? You left before sunset. You should have only seen one. I looked west. The sun sat low behind the mountains. Then I looked east. Another sunset glowed beyond the trees. 2 orange horizons. 2 dying suns. And as I stared in disbelief, one of them began to rise instead of set. I couldn't breathe. One sun was disappearing behind the western ridge. The other was climbing into the eastern sky. For a few impossible seconds, the entire forest was lit by 2 sunsets moving in opposite directions. Then the eastern light blinked out. Not faded, not hidden by clouds. It simply ceased to exist. The world snapped back to normal. One sky, one sunset, one terrified park ranger standing alone on a trail that no longer matched his map. Mercer, Helen's voice came through the radio again. Don't look at the sky. Too late. I already did. A long silence followed. Then she said the sentence that would haunt me for the rest of my career. Then the park knows your face. When I finally reached the ranger station, every employee was waiting for me. Not because I'd gotten lost, because they'd expected me to. No one looked relieved. They looked disappointed, like I'd survived something they assumed would kill me. Helen took the torn map from my hands. Without saying a word, she walked to a steel furnace in the corner of the station and burned every piece. The paper caught fire instantly. The flames burned green. No one reacted. Apparently, that was normal. After everyone else left, Helen placed another map on the table. It looked identical, except this one had handwritten notes in red ink. Some trails were circled. Others had thick X's through them. One trail, Ridge Loop, had a note beside it. Changed 47 times this year. I stared at her. What exactly changes? She answered carefully. The park. I thought she meant landslides. Flood damage. Natural erosion. She shook her head. Not the terrain. The places. She pointed to a photograph hanging on the wall. It showed the ranger station in 1998. The building looked exactly the same. The mountains behind it didn't. An entire ridge visible in the photo no longer existed. Instead, there was a lake. I assumed the picture had been edited. Then she handed me another, taken in 1976. Same station, different mountains again. I laughed nervously. That's impossible. So, is what you saw tonight. She wasn't trying to convince me anymore. She was simply stating facts. Then she opened a locked drawer and removed a thick black journal. Its leather cover had no title. Inside were hundreds of handwritten entries. Each began the same way. Sunset Observation Report. Different handwriting. Different decades. Same subject. Pages described trails appearing overnight. Entire valleys changing position. Campsites moving miles from where they'd been the day before. Some entries ended abruptly mid-sentence. Others simply stopped after one final line. Didn't make it back before sunrise. One report caught my attention. It was dated 12 years earlier. The ranger writing it described seeing a trail called Hollow Man Pass. The same impossible trail I'd seen. His final sentence read, "If the map offers you a shortcut, it's already too late." There were no more entries after that. The next morning, I searched the employee database. The ranger's name was Ethan Doyle. Status: missing, never found. I was still reading his file when another ranger walked into the office. His name was Noah Briggs. He'd been working black Alder almost 10 years. He tossed a cup of coffee onto my desk. "You saw a new trail." It wasn't a question. I nodded. He sighed. "Happened to me my second month." "You lived Barely. He rolled up his left sleeve. From his wrist to his elbow stretched dozens of thin scars. Perfectly parallel. What happened? I followed one. Noah refused to elaborate. Instead, he asked me something strange. When you looked at the old ranger, did he recognize you? I remembered the way the figure had pointed, the way he'd stood there waiting. I don't know. Noah looked genuinely relieved. Good. If he smiles first. Don't smile back. Before I could ask why, the station alarm sounded. Not a fire alarm. Not weather. 3 slow chimes echoed through the building. Every ranger immediately stood up. Nobody panicked. Nobody ran. They simply moved with frightening efficiency. Helen entered carrying another map. This morning's changes. She pinned it to the wall. The room fell silent. 3 trails had disappeared overnight. Not closed. Gone. One brand new trail had appeared in their place. Its name chilled me. Mercer's Crossing. Every eye in the room slowly turned toward me. I stared at the map. I didn't make that. Helen quietly replied, "We know." My throat went dry. I've never even been there. You don't have to. She folded the map before anyone else could look at it any longer. No one uses that trail. A younger ranger raised his hand. What if visitors find it? Helen answered without hesitation. They won't. That afternoon, we received a distress call. A father reported his teenage daughter missing near Elk Ridge. The GPS location seemed routine. Noah and I responded together. When we arrived, the father was frantic. She walked 50 feet ahead of me. I looked down to tie my boot. When I looked up, she was gone. No screams. No footprints leaving the trail. Nothing. Search teams spread through the forest. Dogs found no scent. Drones found nothing. Then I noticed something odd. The trail map posted at the trailhead had changed. Not dramatically. One tiny detail. A dotted line now branched off into the woods. It hadn't been there when we arrived. I compared it to the pocket map in my vest. The dotted trail didn't exist there. I quietly called Noah over. His face immediately went pale. Don't tell anyone. Why? Because if they all look at it, it gets stronger. Before I could ask what he meant, a girl's voice drifted through the trees. Dad! The father sprinted toward the sound. We chased after him. He stopped at the edge of a narrow path. A path that hadn't existed 30 seconds earlier. The missing girl stood about 100 yards away, perfectly still, facing us. Dad! She smiled. Noah grabbed the father's shoulder with surprising force. That's not your daughter. The father shoved him away. She's right there. He took one step onto the new trail. The girl smiled wider. Then, every tree around her slowly turned to face us too. And one by one, new trails began appearing between them. The father took another step. Noah grabbed the back of his jacket and yanked him so hard they both hit the ground. Let me go. My daughter is right there. He pointed toward the girl. She hadn't moved. Not a single inch. She simply stood at the end of the newly formed trail, smiling patiently. Then she spoke again. Dad, only. This time her voice came from somewhere behind us. Every ranger slowly turned. The girl was standing 20 yards behind our search line. Same clothes, same face, same smile. The first girl was still ahead of us. Now there were 2. The father screamed. No! His knees gave out. He looked back and forth between them, trying to decide which one was real. That was exactly what they wanted. Noah covered the man's eyes. Don't compare them. Pick one direction. Not both. The father shoved Noah away. They're both my daughter. The girl in front laughed. The girl behind laughed a second later. Not at the same time. Like an echo trying to imitate the original. Then, every new trail around us shifted. They didn't appear. They moved. Like living things. The dirt twisted. Roots pushed through the ground. Trail markers bent sideways. Within seconds, the forest contained nearly a dozen different paths where only one had existed before. Helen's voice exploded through every radio. Nobody leaves the main trail. I repeat, ignore every new path. Too late. One volunteer searcher had already wandered 20 feet away. His name was Kyle. College kid. First volunteer mission. He froze. I hear someone. We all did. His mother. Calling his name. Kyle. I'm over here. Kyle smiled. My mom. Noah lunged toward him. Kyle. The volunteer stepped onto one of the fresh trails. Immediately, the path folded shut behind him. Not collapsed, folded, like paper. 1 second he was there. The next, he was simply gone. No scream, no struggle, nothing. The forest became silent. The two girls vanished. Every extra trail disappeared. Only the original hiking path remained, as if none of it had happened. Except Kyle was still missing. Search teams looked until dawn. Nothing. No footprints. No clothing. No blood. His radio never transmitted again. Officially, he became another missing person. Unofficially, everyone at Black Alder knew what had happened. The park had accepted another ranger. It simply hadn't issued him a uniform yet. Back at the station, I couldn't stop thinking about the new trail with my name. Mercer's Crossing. I searched every archive I could access. Old maps, fire surveys, satellite images. Nothing. The trail had never existed before yesterday. Then I found something stranger. An aerial photograph taken 15 years earlier. There, barely visible beneath the trees, was a wooden sign. The resolution was terrible, but after enlarging the image, I could just make out 2 words. Mercer's Crossing. 15 years before I ever worked there. Before I'd even graduated high school. Someone knocked softly on the office door. It was Noah. Without speaking, he placed an old Polaroid on my desk. 6 park rangers stood smiling beside a trailhead. One of them was Ethan Doyle, the missing ranger whose journal I'd read. Another was Owen, the old ranger I'd met during my first week. Then my stomach turned. Standing on the far left was me. Same face, same eyes, same uniform, only older, much older. Gray hair, deep wrinkles. My name tag still read, Caleb Mercer. The date written beneath the photograph made no sense. September 14th, 1996. I was 4 years old in 1996. That's impossible. Noah nodded. I know. That's why I waited. For what? For you to see your own trail. He quietly sat across from me. Every ranger here eventually gets one. A trail named after them. I laughed nervously. That's some sick tradition. It isn't. His expression never changed. The trail appears before the person belongs to it. My mouth went dry. What happens after that? Noah didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over to the station wall where dozens of employee photographs hung. Current staff, retired staff, former supervisors. He pointed to a smiling ranger near the bottom. Her. Trail 11. Another. Him. Lost Lake Path. Then another. She became Hollow Man Pass. I stared. They're all gone. Noah nodded once. Every trail has a ranger. And eventually, every ranger becomes a trail. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2:13 a.m., the emergency phone rang beside my bed in the ranger dorm. Unknown internal extension. I answered. No breathing. No static. Only a calm male voice. Good evening, Ranger Mercer. I'd like to report that your trail has moved. The line went dead. Seconds later, my GPS on the bedside table powered itself on, without anyone touching it. The screen displayed a blinking location. Not inside the park, not anywhere on Earth according to the coordinates. The destination had only one label. Start here. I should have turned the GPS off. Instead, I watched the blinking dot move. Not across the screen. Toward me. Every few seconds, the marker shifted closer to the little blue icon that represented my location. That wasn't possible. I was standing still. The GPS thought something else was traveling to me. Then the distance counter appeared. 2.1 miles. A second later, 1.8 miles. It wasn't moving like a person walking. It was moving in impossible jumps. Almost as if the land between us kept disappearing. Someone knocked on my cabin door. 3 slow knocks. Exactly 3. My heart stopped. It was 2:17 in the morning. Nobody visited the ranger cabins after dark. Nobody. Helen had made that very clear during orientation. If someone knocked, you waited. If they knocked again, you stayed silent. If they called your name, you definitely didn't answer. The knocking came again. 3 more. Then a familiar voice. Caleb. It was Noah. I need your help. I stepped toward the door. Then I remembered something. Noah never called me Caleb. At work, everyone used last names. Always. Even outside the station. I backed away from the door. The voice continued. Mercer. Better. Closer. More convincing. Open up. Silence. Then, another knock. Only this time, it came from my bedroom window. The GPS beeped again. 0.6 miles. Whatever was coming had nearly arrived. I killed every light in the cabin. The room fell into darkness. Outside, I heard footsteps circling the building. Not one set. Several. Slow. Patient. Crunch. 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 Each step perfectly spaced. Almost rhythmic. My radio suddenly turned on by itself. Helen's voice whispered through heavy static. Don't look outside. I grabbed the radio. Helen, if it knows you're awake, pretend you aren't. The transmission cut out. Immediately afterward, someone tried the cabin door. The handle turned slowly. Once. Twice. Then stopped. 5 minutes passed. No sound. No footsteps. Nothing. I finally convinced myself it was over. Then, my cabin door opened. Not all the way. Just enough for a folded map to slide across the floor. The door closed again. I waited another 10 minutes before moving. The hallway outside remained empty. The map lay exactly where it had stopped. It wasn't one of ours. The paper looked old. Handmade. Yellowed with age. Across the top, someone had written in faded black ink. Black Alder National Forest. Except, the date printed beneath the title read, 2039 edition. I unfolded it. Nearly every trail had disappeared. Only 5 remained. Trail 7, Hollow Man Pass, Lost Lake Path, Mercer's Crossing, and one new trail I'd never seen before. The Rangers' Return. A red circle surrounded it. Beside the circle, someone had written, Last entrance before replacement. Replacement. The word echoed in my head. Replacement for what? Or, for who? At sunrise, I drove straight to the station. Helen was already waiting. Before I could speak, she looked at the map in my hands. Her face turned white. Where did you get that? It came under my door. She took a slow step backward. No. What? They've never delivered one before. She led me downstairs into a section of the station I'd never seen. A steel security door. Fingerprint scanner. Old concrete stairs leading underground. The basement looked more like an archive than a ranger station. Rows of shelves held thousands of roll maps. Every single one labeled with a year. Even years that hadn't happened yet. I reached toward one. Helen slapped my hand away. Only touched the current year. What? Because the others remember. She unlocked a metal cabinet marked Active Personnel. Inside were folders containing photographs of every current ranger. Mine sat near the front. I opened it. There were far more pages than there should have been. Hiring records, medical exams, transfer requests, performance reports. Everything looked normal until the final page. It wasn't a report. It was a death certificate. Name, Caleb Mercer. Cause of death, lost during routine trail closure. Date, October 18th, 2039. 5 years from now. I looked up at Helen. This is fake. I wish it was. She quietly opened another drawer. Inside were dozens of identical folders. Every ranger who had ever worked Black Alder. Every file ended the same way. A death certificate. No exceptions. Not one retirement record. Not one resignation. Everyone died. Eventually. My hands are shaking. So why stay? Helen smiled sadly. Because leaving doesn't matter. What? The park doesn't employ rangers. It collects them. Before I could ask another question, every light in the basement flickered. Once. Twice. Then turned blood red. An alarm I'd never heard before echoed through the station. Not electronic. Mechanical. An old iron bell somewhere beneath us. One heavy ring. Then another. Then another. Helen didn't hesitate. Run. What's happening? She looked toward the ceiling. It's daytime. So, her voice cracked for the first time since I'd met her. That means the map changed early. The concrete floor beneath our feet suddenly trembled. A loud tearing sound echoed through the walls. Not metal, not stone, paper. Something enormous was unfolding directly beneath the ranger station. Then, from somewhere below us, a man's voice calmly announced over the station intercom. Welcome back, Ranger Mercer. Your trail is ready. The voice echoed through the basement like it had been waiting years to say those words. Nobody in the station spoke. Nobody even breathed. Helen grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "Don't answer." I wasn't going to. "I know." She looked me straight in the eyes. "I'm talking about when it uses your voice." The floor shook again. This time the filing cabinets rattled. Hundreds of rolled maps slid onto the concrete. One of them slowly unrolled by itself. Nobody touched it. The paper spread across the floor until it reached my boots. Across the center, written in fresh black ink, were 3 words. "Current position, Mercer." My stomach tightened. The map wasn't showing where I was. It was showing what I was becoming. Another alarm sounded upstairs. Not the iron bell this time. Emergency radios. Every radio in the building came alive at once. Unit 3 respond. "Missing hikers. North Ridge." A second voice interrupted. "Negative. They're already inside." Then a third. "Close Mercer's crossing immediately." Silence. Finally, a fourth dispatcher whispered something that made every ranger in the room freeze. "There are 2 Mercers on camera." Helen looked at me. "Stay here." She and Noah sprinted upstairs, against every instinct telling me to listen. I followed. The operations room was chaos. Monitors covered one wall. Every trail camera in the park streamed live footage. Most showed empty forests. One screen showed Mercer's crossing. There, standing beside the trailhead, was me. Not someone who looked like me. Me. Same uniform. Same radio. Same fresh scratch on my left hand from repairing a fence that morning. He wasn't moving. He was staring directly into the trail camera. Then, he smiled. I hadn't smiled. Yet somehow, he had my smile. The dispatcher switched cameras. Another angle. My duplicate was gone. The trail stood empty. No footprints. Nothing. Then the camera glitched. For less than a second, every monitor in the room displayed the same image. Hundreds of identical versions of me, standing silently among the trees, watching. The power cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only emergency lights remained. Someone whispered, "They're early." Generators kicked in. The monitors returned. This time, every trail camera was facing the ranger station. That wasn't possible. They were mounted miles away. Yet every screen now showed the front entrance from different angles. And every angle revealed the same thing. Rangers were arriving. Dozens of them, walking out of the forest. None of us had called for backup. Noah leaned closer to one screen. "Oh no!" I looked where he was pointing. Each arriving ranger wore an outdated uniform. Some from the 1980s, others from the 1960s. One looked like he'd stepped out of a black and white photograph. Every one of them carried old steel barricades. Every one of them walked with the same calm pace. And every one of them had a name tag belonging to a ranger listed as officially missing. Helen spoke quietly. "They're reporting for duty." Nobody laughed. The front door opened, not because someone unlocked it, because someone politely held it open from outside. An elderly ranger stepped inside. Gray beard, weathered face, sun-bleached hat. His name tag read, Ethan Doyle, the missing ranger whose journal I'd read. He disappeared 12 years ago. Yet here he stood, without a single gray hair more than in his employee photo. He smiled at Helen. "Shift change." Helen raised her sidearm. "Stop." Ethan looked genuinely confused. "But it's sunset." I glanced toward the windows. It wasn't. The sun stood high overhead, bright, almost noon. Yet, inside the station, our shadows stretched long across the floor. Like sunset. Ethan noticed me. His smile widened. "There you are. I've been trying to find you." I didn't answer. He nodded approvingly. "Good. You remember." "I don't remember anything." "You will." He reached into his pocket and removed a folded photograph. He handed it to me. Against Helen's protests. I looked. The picture showed 8 park rangers standing together outside the station. Every face belonged to someone currently employed. Except mine. Instead of me, there stood Ethan. In my place. Wearing my name tag. I flipped the photo over. One sentence was written on the back. "Every ranger gets replaced." The lights flickered again. When they stabilized, Ethan was gone. So were the other missing rangers. The front door remained closed. as if no one had entered at all. Only the photograph remained in my hand. That evening, Helen finally told me the truth she'd hidden since my first day. The trails don't trap people. They copy them. I stared at her. What? The park doesn't want bodies. It wants replacements. She unlocked another cabinet. Inside sat hundreds of ranger badges. Every missing employee, every vanished volunteer, every lost firefighter, every search and rescue worker. Each badge carried tiny scratches on the back. Names, dates, numbers. One badge looked brand new. It already had my name engraved on it. I dropped it immediately. I never ordered this. No, Helen whispered. They did. Suddenly, Noah burst into the room, completely out of breath. They found the volunteer. Kyle. No. What they found was his station. We followed him into the evidence room. A drone had photographed something impossible deep in the northern forest. A fully built ranger outpost. Fresh paint. Working solar panels. American flag. Official Park Service seal. The problem? No such station existed anywhere in Black Alder. According to the image timestamp, it had appeared less than 20 minutes ago. Zooming in made my blood run cold. Standing outside the building, wearing a spotless ranger uniform, was Kyle, the missing volunteer. He smiled at the drone, raised one hand, then slowly pointed directly at the camera, as if he'd known someone would be watching. And behind him, a brand new wooden sign had been installed beside the trail. Its fresh lettering read, Mercer Ranger Station, now open. I stared at the drone image until my eyes hurt. There was no mistake. Kyle wasn't dirty. He wasn't injured. He wasn't acting like someone who'd been missing for 24 hours. He looked employed. His uniform fit perfectly. His badge reflected the afternoon sun. And behind him, hanging above the station entrance, was the same National Park Service emblem we used at headquarters. Except one detail had changed. The pine tree in the center of the emblem had been replaced by a trail. Noah enlarged the photograph. There, standing in the window, behind Kyle, was another ranger. Then another. Then another. None of them moved. They simply watched the drone, waiting. Helen immediately ordered every road into the northern district closed. No one goes near that station. One of the younger rangers looked confused. It's a building. No, Helen answered. It's bait. That night, every employee slept inside the main station. Nobody stayed alone anymore. At 11:48 p.m., the first radio transmission arrived. Kyle to base. The room went silent. The dispatcher slowly answered. Kyle. His voice sounded cheerful. You guys left without me. I found a new station. It's incredible. You should all come see it. Helen pressed the transmit button. Kyle, what year is it? Silence. Then, it's always sunset. The transmission ended. No one slept after that. At dawn, a rescue helicopter from the regional office arrived. The pilot hadn't heard any of our stories. He didn't believe in moving trails, living maps, replacement rangers. He believed in satellite images, GPS, facts. We'll fly over the area. If there's a station, we'll find it. Helen tried to stop him. He ignored her. The helicopter lifted off at exactly 8:02 a.m. Every ranger stood outside, watching it disappear over the mountains. 5 minutes later, its radio crackled. We got visual. There is definitely a ranger station out here. A pause. That's strange. What? It's bigger than headquarters. Another pause. There are people waving at us. The pilot laughed. They're wearing old uniforms. Then, nothing. Only static. For nearly 30 seconds. Finally, the co-pilot screamed. There are 2 helicopters. The transmission exploded into white noise. Everyone looked up. The helicopter returned exactly 12 minutes later. It landed normally. No damage. No smoke. Nothing. The pilot climbed out, smiling. Too much. Helen walked toward him. Report. He handed her the flight log. Everything looked normal. Normal fuel usage. Normal flight path. Normal weather. Then she asked him one question. How many people were on board? The pilot frowned. What do you mean? When you took off? How many? He looked at the co-pilot, then back at Helen. 3. There had only been 2. Nobody said anything. The pilot looked genuinely confused. There was always 3. No. Helen whispered. There wasn't. That afternoon, security cameras inside the station began malfunctioning. Not all of them, just the hallway leading to the map archive. Every recording showed someone walking through the corridor at exactly 3:17 p.m. Same height, same uniform, same walk. Me, the problem. At 3:17, I'd been sitting in Helen's office with 6 witnesses. We reviewed the footage. The hallway version of me stopped outside the archive door, looked directly into the camera, then reached into his pocket. He removed my key ring, the exact key ring hanging from my belt, unlocked the archive, walked inside. The recording ended. We rushed downstairs. The archive door stood locked. My keys remained in my pocket. Yet inside, one cabinet had been opened. Only one, the drawer labeled Future Personnel. Someone had taken a file. Mine. Noah quietly asked, "Did you ever wonder why none of the cameras showed the same hallway twice?" I stared at him. "What?" He pointed toward the security monitor. The corridor looked longer than it should have been. The emergency exit wasn't where I'd remembered. Neither was the water fountain. He handed me an older recording from 6 months earlier. Completely different hallway. Same camera. Same location. Different building layout. "It's changing." He nodded. "The station changes with the park." That evening we made a decision. Instead of waiting, we go to Mercer's Ranger Station. 6 experienced rangers. Body cameras. GPS trackers. Drone support. Satellite phone. Everything modern technology could provide. Helen looked at each of us before we left. "If anyone starts remembering things that never happened, say it immediately." The station appeared exactly where the drone had photographed it. Perfect condition. Fresh lumber. Fresh paint. Fresh tire tracks. It looked like it had been operating for years. American flag moving gently in the breeze. The parking lot contained 6 Park Service trucks. Our license plates. Our unit numbers. One truck belonged to me. I'd never driven there. The front door stood open. Inside, coffee was still warm. Computers were running. Radios played weather forecasts. Incident reports lay scattered across desks. Everything looked occupied. Just empty. Until we found the duty board. Every ranger's name was listed, including mine. Beside each name was today's assignment. Caleb Mercer. Close Ridge Loop before sunset. I looked at Helen. "That's my actual assignment." She slowly nodded. Without warning, every radio inside the building transmitted the same sentence at once. "Welcome back." Then every computer monitor turned on. Each displayed live security footage. Not of this station, of our real headquarters. We watched ourselves, standing inside this building, watching the screens, like mirrors facing mirrors. Then one monitor zoomed in. Someone walked into the real ranger station. He looked exactly like me. He smiled at the front desk, and every ranger back at headquarters greeted him by name. Nobody in our group spoke. We just stared at the monitor. The man walking through headquarters wasn't someone who resembled me. It wasn't a trick of the camera. It wasn't bad resolution. It was me. Same face, same beard, same jacket. Even the rip in the left sleeve from catching it on barbed wire 2 days earlier was there. He walked through the lobby like he belonged there. Helen whispered, "We left someone behind." Noah slowly shook his head. "No, it made one." The monitors continued playing. My duplicate walked straight into Helen's office. He knew the door code. He knew where she kept her spare keys. He even knew which coffee mug belonged to her. Then he stopped, turned toward the security camera, and smiled. Not at the camera, at me. Every screen suddenly filled with static. Words appeared in white letters. "Return to your assigned station." The lights inside Mercer's Ranger Station went out. Every single one. Only sunlight filtered through the windows. Then, footsteps echoed upstairs. Slow, heavy, measured. Not one person, many, walking in perfect rhythm. Helen drew her sidearm. Nobody goes upstairs. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, a radio upstairs crackled. Someone laughed. It was my laugh. Noah looked at me. "Whatever happens, don't answer yourself." The front door slammed shut, hard enough to shake the building. Every window instantly fogged over. Outside, the forest disappeared, not because of mist, Because there wasn't a forest anymore, only endless trails, thousands of them, stretching in every direction, like veins across the earth. Then the upstairs door slowly opened. A ranger walked down the staircase. He wore an old Park Service uniform from decades ago. His name, tag read, Caleb Mercer. Age, maybe 70. Gray beard, wrinkled face. Same scar beneath the chin I'd gotten when I was 12. Same broken nose from college football. Same eyes. He looked exhausted. Not evil, just tired. He stopped halfway down. I don't have much time. Nobody moved. He looked only at me. You have to leave before sunset. I swallowed. Who are you? You. No. You. After 41 years. Every hair on my arm stood up. He reached into his pocket, pulled out my ranger badge. Not a copy. Mine. The exact badge attached to my vest. Instinctively, I looked down. My vest was empty. It had disappeared. The older me held the badge toward me. Take it, Helen shouted. Don't touch anything he gives you. The old man ignored her. They're already replacing you. You still have one chance. A loud crack echoed upstairs, like a tree snapping in half. The old ranger looked toward the ceiling. They found me. Another voice called from above. Younger, calmer. My voice. Caleb. The old ranger closed his eyes. He's here. Footsteps descended again. Another me appeared. This one looked exactly my current age. Perfect uniform. Clean boots. Relaxed smile. He walked downstairs carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Helen. She didn't take it. He shrugged. No problem. Then looked at me. You've been making this harder than it needs to be. I felt sick. What are you? He smiled. The ranger who came back. I never left. You did. You just haven't realized it yet. He reached into his pocket, pulled out my wallet, driver's license, credit cards, family photograph, everything. Things I checked before leaving that morning. Things that should have been in my pocket. My pockets were empty. Every single one. He tossed the wallet onto a desk. You don't need these anymore. The old version of me shouted. Don't listen. The younger duplicate sighed. You always ruin this part. Without warning, the duplicate punched the older me so hard he fell backward down the stairs. Helen fired. The bullet passed straight through the younger version. It hit the wall behind him. He never reacted. He simply kept smiling. Then every radio in the building activated. Hundreds of voices spoke at once. Some crying, some laughing, some begging. Every one of them repeated the same sentence. I made it back. I made it back. I made it back. The duplicate stepped closer. So did we. He pointed toward the fogged windows. The glass slowly cleared. Standing outside were hundreds of park rangers. Every decade, every uniform, every missing employee, every volunteer, every firefighter, every search and rescue worker, silently watching the station, waiting. The duplicate looked back at me. You think the park kills people? It doesn't. It keeps them. The floor beneath us suddenly shook so violently the ceiling cracked open. Sunlight poured through. Except, it wasn't sunlight anymore. The entire sky above the station had become a giant map. Trails stretched across the clouds. Mountains folded like paper. Lakes moved. Forests shifted. And at the center of it all, a new trail slowly drew itself into existence. Its name burned across the sky in black letters. Mercer's Return. Then the duplicate smiled one last time. You were never assigned to protect the park. You were assigned to become part of it. The words had barely left his mouth when the entire building lurched sideways. Not from an earthquake, from the ground beneath it moving. The station wasn't collapsing. It was sliding. Every window showed the same impossible sight. The trails outside were rearranging themselves like lines being redrawn on a living map. Entire hills shifted. Forests folded inward. Rivers bent around mountains that hadn't existed a second earlier. It felt less like the world was changing and more like someone was editing it. The older version of me struggled to his feet. Blood ran from his forehead, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. Listen carefully. You only get one chance. He pointed toward the ceiling. When a map finishes drawing, one of us stays. The duplicate laughed. He still thinks you have a choice. Then every monitor in the station came back to life. Each one displayed a different year. On every screen, A different version of me walked through Black Alder National Forest. Some were older, some younger, some limped, some carried rifles. One had only one eye, another was missing his left arm. Every one of them eventually reached the same trailhead, Mercer's Crossing. Every recording ended there. The duplicate spread his arms. You've already made this decision. Again, and again, and again. Helen suddenly grabbed the emergency flare gun hanging beside the exit. She fired it straight into the ceiling. The burning flare punched through old timber and exploded into the attic. Within seconds, fire spread through the roof. For the first time, the duplicate stopped smiling. "No!" the old version of me shouted. "Now!" Helen shoved me toward the front door. "Run!" Noah and the others forced it open. The moment the door burst outward, the endless maze of trails disappeared. The Rayal forest returned. Smoke filled the station behind us. The duplicate's voice echoed through the flames. "You can't burn a map." We ran. None of us looked back. The fire spread faster than seemed possible. Within minutes, Mercer's ranger station was completely engulfed. The flames burned an unnatural green. No smoke rose into the sky. Instead, the smoke sank into the ground, as though the forest itself was breathing it in. When the fire finally died, there was nothing left. No foundation, no ash, no nails, not even scorch marks. The station had vanished. Only untouched pine needles covered the clearing. 3 helicopters arrived that evening. Federal officials. People in plain green uniforms without agency patches. They questioned every one of us separately, collected our body cameras, confiscated every photograph, every GPS device, every drone recording. When I asked who they worked for, the oldest official simply replied, "Not the Park Service." 2 days later, Black Alder National Forest closed indefinitely. Official reason: wildfire damage. There had never been a wildfire. Noah transferred to Alaska. Helen retired. At least, that's what the paperwork claimed. I never saw either of them again. Every email bounced back. Every phone number stopped working. It was as if they had never existed. I resigned a month later. I couldn't walk into another forest without checking whether the trails still matched the map. I still can't. Even now, a year passed. I tried to convince myself it had all been stress, trauma, sleep deprivation. Until last October, I was driving through Montana on my way to visit my brother. I stopped at a roadside gas station. Nothing unusual. While paying, I noticed a tourist brochure on the counter. Explore Black Alder National Forest. I laughed. The park had supposedly been closed. Curious, I opened the brochure. The trail map looked completely different. Most of the old routes were gone. Only one caught my attention. A brand new hiking trail, highlighted in red for first-time visitors. Its name made my hands start shaking. Mercer's Crossing. Difficulty: easy. Estimated hiking time: 45 minutes. Family friendly. I asked the cashier when they'd added the trail. He frowned. "What do you mean? It's been there forever." I left without another word. That night, I searched the Park Service website. There it was. Mercer's Crossing, complete with photographs. Families smiling. Children hiking. Couples posing beside the trailhead. Then I clicked the employee page. Black Alder listed its current ranger staff. 5 names. The last one froze my blood. Chief Backcountry Ranger Caleb Mercer. The employee photograph showed me, standing in front of the ranger station, smiling, wearing a badge I no longer owned. The biography underneath read, "Serving Black Alder National Forest since 1996. I've never gone back. I never will. But every evening, just before sunset, I still unfold whatever map is nearest to me. Road maps, state maps, even maps on my phone. Most days are normal. Most days. Then, every once in a while, usually when the sun is touching the horizon, I notice one tiny change. A road that wasn't there before. A trail that wasn't there yesterday. A name written in small black letters. Always closer than the last time. And every single version ends the same way. No matter where I live. No matter which map I open. Mercer's Crossing is getting closer to my house. I'm afraid that one evening I'll unfold a map and discover that it isn't leading me back to the forest. It's leading the forest back to me.